been doing this for years.
Wait, everybody got quiet really fast. Good morning. I guess we're going to start the meeting. Thank you for joining us. Today is Thursday, February 10th, 2022. I'd like to join the TDC. If you, Pam, you already stand. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we'll go through the roll call now, please.
Commissioner Cecil Ventura.
Here.
Mayor Holly Smith. Here. Councilwoman Darla Long.
Present.
Viola Cronin.
Here.
Tony Lappy.
Here.
Colleen DePasquale.
Here.
Albert Bell.
Here.
Bill Watson.
Morning.
Fran Meyer is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do you have a motion for the approval of January 13, 2022 TDC minutes?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion. Any discussion on that item? Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. We'll now go to public comment. Public to be heard. Any public wish to address the council? Everybody's quiet and cold this morning. Public comment? Okay. And municipalities to be heard. Any municipality here to be heard?
Hi, thank you so much for allowing us to speak. Gloria Tate is actually our designated liaison to attend these meetings from the City of Cape Coral Council. She, however, is in Tallahassee with many of our elected leaders. Mayor Smith was just there. She flew back. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, she asked me to give an update, but we have this amazing team here from the City of Cape Coral, so they're going to be giving you a much more detailed update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Michelle Dean with City of Cape Coral, and this is Melissa Mickey with City of Cape Coral. I've been coming here for years giving you updates on parks and recreation, all the fun things to do in Cape Coral. But if you haven't been watching, Cape Coral's been growing by leaps and bounds over the last few years. In fact, the population was announced at 201,554, which is 30% higher than 2011. And that was just last year. So I know Mr. Ostrowski is one of our newest residents over in Cape Coral. But this has required a lot of strategic planning, construction, and changes. And part of that is forming a new Office of Communications. And this is now part of the City Manager's office. He pulled in marketing personnel like myself from Parks and Rec and other portions of the city to be part of a more centralized and strategic communications approach. And this is everything from trash pickup to the Go Bond. So I'd like to introduce Melissa Mickey as our new city spokesperson, and she's going to go through a lot of the things going on right now.
And you just stay up here.
Yeah.
A lot of work on it. Thank you, Michelle. It's nice to see everybody and meet you guys. She told you a little bit about the Office of Communications for the City of Cape Coral. We're really excited. We haven't even been in existence for a year yet. But we are going to be a more centralized approach for the city to send out all of their communications and kind of have a unified messaging and that kind of thing. So I think I'll just dive right in because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Sunsplash, I think many of you may be aware of it if you've been following the news or the stories that are going out there. The city entered into a public-private partnership with Pro Parks. They're now going to be managing the park. It's going to free the city from the daily maintenance and operations and keep the popular amenity open to residents. In fact, they were having some really good sales around Christmas time, really trying to get everybody to get some of those memberships going and have you guys attend it. You want me to?
Yeah, I can expand on this.
I'll let you do that.
Just since I'm more familiar with the Parks and Rec part. So Sunsplash does have a new logo, but the website is the same, and the social media accounts are the same. So we're hoping this will be a very easy transition for area visitors, area residents to be able to take advantage of the new and improved Sunsplash. But this makes it easier on us to be able to benefit mutually and still provide that amenity. And then also Coral Oaks Golf Course, you probably heard in the news, there was some talks about maybe putting that out to be managed, outsourced. It is not going to be outsourced. The city is going to continue to manage and maintain the course. And in fact, we are in the middle of a $500,000, let's see, complete and total asphalt renovation to the cart path and the practice range. And there's tree trimming, so it's getting a huge facelift this spring. But let's get on to the fun stuff.
So this Go Bond dollars, we have a lot of projects going on in Cape Coral right now, so it's really exciting. We've had some groundbreaking ceremonies for some of our neighborhood parks, which is going to be construction of the park from start to finish. This is actually one of the parks that's currently in existence, and it's receiving some addition and to it. The Del Prado Lineal Park actually is on Del Prado, and it runs from Pine Island Road all the way to Kismet. You've probably seen it. It's a large multi-youth pathway. It's on both sides of Del Prado, and it includes some workout stations along it. This particular project is currently going on, so you may have seen a big pile of dirt along Del Prado, and it's going to add to the linear park. It's going to have a playground, it's going to have basketball courts, parking, bathrooms, and so that'll be a really exciting addition to that area. Also, this is Cultural Park. This is one of the parks that you can see by this area here that it started with nothing, and now it's already, as of last month, they've really broken ground, and we're starting to see a lot of improvements there, and that's going to be a big neighborhood park. It's going to consist of multi-use paths, walkways. It has a playground. It's going to have an outdoor exhibit space, a rose garden, and you can find more information on the park if you go on our website, capecoral.gov, and you click on the Go Bond Projects button. Gator Circle Park, another park similar to Cultural. It's actually the same construction company, and they've also broken ground there, and it is going to be construction of an entire park for that area. You may have also seen we are doing naming of these parks, so this is just the project name Gator Circle Park, but we're actually looking to the community to help us name these parks. I don't know why I'm like out of breath. I feel like I'm going really, really fast. So with Gator Circle Park, we've actually closed the naming, but if you're interested in helping come up with those names, check out our Facebook page, and Sands Park is the park that we're actually currently naming this week. And so what we'll do is we'll get all of the names sent to us from residents, and then we will, it goes to a committee who's going to narrow it down to like 10 names, and then it goes in front of council, and they'll pick some of the names.
And just to, I'll give her a break from talking real quick. So again, our Go Bond project website, capecoral.gov/GoBond. You can see the project schedules for all the new parks and existing park improvements. So if you're wondering when Lake Mead or Crystal Lake or some of these other parks are going to break ground and get started, that all can be found on the website, as well as concept plans and renderings, and then that Name Your Park contest. So the one with the manatee, the playground with the manatee, if you have any ideas, put those in this week. And then the other part of the project.
So of course, the big project that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about is the Yacht Club Community Park project. It's going to be a really exciting end result. It's going to be a resort-style amenity. And so I know that people are concerned. It will require closing of the park for 2 years. And we are working to move a lot of the activities that were taking place at the park. We're working to move those people to different locations. Also, we've had people reaching out about swim lessons at the community pool. We're working on that stuff right now to make sure that they have a place to go while it is under construction. But at the end, it is going to be really, really beautiful. So we have a separate PIO for this project that's hired from the construction company that's going to help get out messaging, specifically to the residents that are really affected, that are right there, that are going to be seeing the construction trucks come into their communities. They're also going to help get out information to the media, and they're going to link into the website that we currently have for the project, and making sure that it's always updated with the newest information. And that website is www.ccyachtclub.com. You can look at it now. We've got our up-to-date information, but again, it will, as this project starts moving, it's going to have more and more information on there. Oh, and then there is a town hall. Councilmember Gloria Tate is actually hosting a town hall on the Yacht Club on February 28th. It will be at the Yacht Club from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. We're going to have some staff members there to answer questions and get out information to the public, and just update them with any information that's good regarding the closure of the park and what they'll see and what's going to happen there. And then we just wanted to tell you a little bit, this is our last slide, about special events that are going on. We hosted the 30th Annual Tour to Cape in January, had a really huge turnout, and we actually had a lot of people that participated that were from out of the country, so we're really excited about that event and that those people are coming here specifically for that and to participate in that. Cape Coral Bike Nights are taking place. We got one coming up this Saturday and another one in April. And then the Burrowing Owl Festival, we partner with the Cape Coral Friends of Wildlife. It'll be on Saturday, February 26th, and I don't know if any of you were watching, but we actually had a Ground Owl Day, the same day that we had Groundhog Day, and we did have some people there from out of the country that were there just to see the ground owls. So we are, starting to see a lot of tourists coming in for things that are really specific to Cape Coral, and that is very exciting to us. So.
And I just had one more thing that I missed earlier. For everybody that's used to Sandra Greiner being the face of Sunsplash, Sandra's over here. She is now the business manager for Parks and Recreation, and is not to do with Sunsplash, so don't contact her for that. But she recently successfully set up a new Cape Coral Parks Advisory Board, and she's here with Stacy Pasek from our group. Nita Whaley from our Economic Development Group is here as well. And, I put one of these on each of your areas. This is just our current Parks and Recreation Program Guide with a lot of the different things in the Cape. There's also a map that shows where some of these new parks are going, and we just appreciate your continued support and are excited to be here to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all the information. A lot of exciting things going on in Cape Coral. Any other municipalities to be heard of this morning? Okay, we'll come back to the agenda to the Executive Director, Tamara Pygott, for her.
Good morning, Council. We will be going over December data this month. As you'll see, bed tax collections for the month of December came in at 5.3 million. This is a pretty significant increase, obviously, over last year, but even a significant increase over 2019, almost 35% increase. For the fiscal year to date, that would be October, November, and December, almost 12.9 million, up 42.3% over 2019. In terms of the STAR report, occupancy for the month of December was at 73%, ADR 186.54, and RevPAR at 136. All increases over the previous year. Really strong December performance. Really pleased to see that. Today we have Hannah Smith speaking to us from STAR, and real excited about that. She's going to give us a really great update. So you'll hear more about STAR and STAR activity here shortly. In terms of key data, this is our vacation rental. Occupancy for the month of December was 50%. Up over 20 and 2019, ADR at 274 and RevPAR at 136. Traffic at the airport, over 1 million passengers through the airport in December. And the most exciting news about that is they broke through for the full year above 2019 by a smidge. But as you know, in terms of the top 50 airports in the country, RSW #1 in recovery, so fantastic news for the airport. 10.3 million passengers through the airport in 2021, best year ever. That is all I have. Turn it over to you, Jeff.
You're good? Okay, thank you, Tamara.
But I was watching, I promise.
We know you were. Next will be Jeff Nelke, Sports Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. So we're going to go through our October, November, December data, which also will then be our calendar year end of 2021 report. So first is October. Hotel room nights, about 15,000 generated through sports tourism, about $7 million economic spend by visitors. That was led largely by the Perfect Game event, which was 12,000 of those 15,000 with the big October event that you all are familiar with. Also had some soccer and some other sports coming in. So you can see the chart is back to normal. Just as a reminder, what happened in 2020 was because of our leadership businesses decision to open up and get Lee County back open from all the restrictions in COVID, we were able to bring a large extra amount of sports events in September and October. We set all-time records, and we brought a lot of events over from Palm Beach County, Fort Lauderdale, Miami that were still closed during October of 2020. So we've normalized back again, and so but still a good month. November, we go to 34,000 room nights filled through sports, $17.4 million in direct visitor spending. This was the best November we've ever had for our tourism records, led by Roy Hobbs World Series, about 18,000 room nights. Senior softball, college basketball continues to be really strong for us. We have the Gulf Coast Showcase and the Fort Myers Tip-Off, which the tip-off is nationally televised, and had the Gators and Buckeyes played one heck of a game in that final. So that was exciting. And then we also had a new client called Girls Fast Pitch, which came in and filled the room. So you can see by the chart that we barely broke 2019's record, but we did break it. And then December also was our best December ever by a lot. And so 15,800 room nights, $6 million of direct visitor spending. City of Palms Basketball Classic still continues to be strong. International holiday hockey coming out of Hertz Arena is back and is going strong again. So just a really well-rounded, lots of different sports events happening in December. If you go to the bar chart, so you can see we took a nice jump in December. So 2021 highlights. So as we talk about our impact for 2021, which was our best year ever, that sounds echoey. Part of the reason for that is, if you look down a couple bullets, is that we had historic months in February, July, November, December. So really good. Coming out of the COVID, we grabbed a lot of new events, and we were able to hold on to a lot of them. So people experienced our destination for the first time and liked it and stayed. So actually coming out of the COVID pandemic actually helped us, because it pushed events to us. We were able to showcase our community and our Parks and Rec department and our customer service and everything else, and they've stayed. So anyway, hotel room nights, 181,000. Sports tourism visitors, 166,000 people came to Lee County through sports tourism, and that generated $72.5 million of direct visitor spending. Hosted 140 events. November, as you all saw, was almost as strong as July now, which July this year we hit an all-time mark of 42,000, I think, and now November's up to 30,000. So July and November are really, really strong months for us. Most of our events are scheduled to return in either 2022 or on some sort of cycling basis beyond that. And as typical, as we have started to get really squeezed on our typical sports venues, we're starting to look for non-traditional sports events. We're really focusing on bowling and events that are going into different facilities that can still increase our sports tourism but aren't having such an impact on our parks department and their facilities. So bar chart is next. So you can see we took a nice jump in 2021, and that beat the 2018 mark. Certainly a year like this is not without a ton of collaboration and a ton of interdepartment relationships. Parks and Recreation is just so critical and so important to what we do. You know, our office is out there trying to bring these events in, but it's our Parks Department who are really boots on the ground, making sure that during rain and lightning delays that the customer service is flowing out to our sports guests. You know, our sports organizing committee, our hotel destination, our hotel partners out here in the audience and watching are such a huge part of what we do. And then we just appreciate our leadership for supporting sports tourism and allowing us to do the things we do. So that's my report, and take any questions.
Two things. One, congratulations on your best year. That's awesome. The second thing is, does this showcase any need for us to have to start looking at, we've had this conversation a couple times over about sports venues, like where are we in regards to inventory? Do we need more? I don't know, like, is this the time to have that conversation about where we're at? Is there I know that things get booked really tight. Is there a shortage? Like, and I know that studies have been done in the past. Like, I just wonder where we are now when it's all said and done.
Go ahead. So we've done an analysis very recently of where we stand in the state of Florida as far as competitive sets. You know, how many softball fields, what does our soccer fields look like compared to other destinations in Florida? And we're compiling all of that, and we're working with county leadership to put that report together so that they can then take it and decide with county commissioners' input and their direction on where we should go. So right now, we're kind of in the strategic planning phase of that, and we're gathering data, and as soon as we have something, we'll certainly be presenting it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great question, Colleen, because I think we all probably hear that from the community. We need more and more of this, more of that. And we're trying to, I know we had a deal, we're trying to last year do a deal with the Fiveplex with the city of Fort Myers, and that didn't go through off of Rockville and Edison. The biggest obstacle right now is space, trying to find land that's compatible again with the community around it to make sure it fits within that community and that would facilitate the needs. So that's what staff's looking at now, though. So.
And hopefully on that, when you're looking at things, hopefully it's not a outside organization that is going to come in and build that for us, that there's going to be restrictions on that for everyone. Hopefully it's going to be within our own boundaries and owned by, you know, the county or whatever municipality. I remember when Perfect Game was coming in and north, up by Babcock, and I know there was real restrictions. It was theirs. It was their organization.
Right.
With all the surrounding facilities owned and operated by them. So
Right.
hopefully it'll be owned by.
What we've always looked at and will continue to is we want to make sure that any facilities are dual role, that they're citizen facilities first, and that they're used by the people who live here. And then on weekends and sometimes during the summer, then we can put the big sports tourism events. I mean, look at the success that our recreation centers are having. A lot of our, you know, Kelly Road Soccer Complex, things like that. So that's the model that we think works really well and that we're going to probably stick to.
With everybody moving where they want more outdoor space.
Yep.
Thank you.
Tony, you had a question?
Just for insight, you know, this Major League Baseball stuff. I know, somebody's got to ask the question. What do you know that we don't know?
You want to say?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Christine Brady. I'm one of the assistant county managers, and I am now working with Jeff and Tam in a leadership role. So thank you for bearing with me on my first meeting here. But at this point right now, we don't really know anything more. So, you know, our folks are preparing for when folks arrive, but there's really not a lot of information as to when. So as soon as we have information, we'll be communicating it through various channels.
And that's the way I get that question, really, Tony, is are we going to have spring training or not? And really, nobody really knows, and it's unfortunate. You talk to some of the players, they can't even talk to their coaches. Nobody can even talk to each other about it within the league themselves. So it's unfortunate, but we're all hoping they do come. I mean, it's only, what, how many weeks away? When was the starting date going to be? Yeah, so it's getting close, you know. So we lost it last year, so we get them back this year. So anything else, Jeff? Any other questions for Jeff or anything? Any more discussion? Great. Well, thank you for that great presentation, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, next we have a special presentation by Hotel Industrial, Hannah.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Hannah Smith. I'm a senior consultant with STR. I'm based in our Broomfield, Colorado office, and I work on our consulting team. So today we're going to start with a total U.S. overview, just give you a sense of how the industry as a whole is recovering, and then focus in on the recovery story for Lee County specifically, take a look at some other counties in Florida and see how Lee County's matching up, and then take a look at both our total U.S. and then Lee County forecasts. So starting out with the total US, we've come a long way since 2020. When we entered this year, we were indexing about 53% of 2019 RevPAR levels. You'll see now we're recovered up to about 83%. A lot of that's been driven by stronger than expected ADR performance, which we'll talk more about throughout the presentation, what actually goes into that ADR recovery. But occupancy as well, we would have been thrilled a year ago to see some of these numbers, 57.6% occupancy. And here you can see how that recovery trended throughout the year. So this is looking at all of those KPIs indexed to the same month in 2019. So you can see that kind of July spike when we saw a ton of really great demand in that month, slowed off a little bit in the fall, but we have seen it continue to build through the end of the year. Looking closer at ADR, you see that for the second half of the year, we actually exceeded 2019 levels for each month. But the caveat there is that it wasn't quite enough to keep up with inflation. So inflation has eaten a lot of those ADR gains. We are still within 95, 98% of those 2019 levels, still really positive, but it's important to keep that inflation context in the back of your mind as we're talking about some of these revenue numbers. This hasn't been a balanced recovery story, and you can see that by looking at the class level data. So what we've seen is the lower end hotels were the quickest to recover their occupancy, whereas we've seen really, really strong ADR performance from those luxury hotels where they're more than keeping up with inflation. So we've seen just extraordinary gains in ADR in those luxury hotels, but those hotels just one class down from them, upper upscale, that's a category that's really been struggling in the recovery. These tend to be those full service Marriott, Hiltons that are around convention centers. They really rely on some of that group, convention, corporate travel. So until those demand sources start to come back, that's a category that's going to continue to struggle to build back that occupancy. Diving in a little deeper to some of that convention group demand data, here we're looking at the transient and group demand, again, indexed back to 2019 to track that recovery. We've seen transient really leading the way. That's been the story of this recovery. It's been driven by that transient leisure traveler nationwide. We have seen group demand start to claw back a little bit. It's still not those big citywide events that really can push performance in some of these major markets. It's more of what we were just talking about, some of those sporting events that are bringing teams in, or weddings. A lot of those smaller groups is more what we're seeing right now. When we look at how that impacts ADR, again, transient ADR we've seen for most of this year exceeding those 2019 levels. Group just hovering around that 100% index. It is important to keep in mind that even if group ADR is recovered to those 2019 levels, it is still the lowest ADR segment. So when we're seeing demand shifting towards that transient traveler, we're actually seeing it shift towards the higher ADR traveler. So that's why we're seeing some of these ADR gains. It's not just that individual hotels are raising their rates or anything like that. We're seeing actually the demand shift towards those higher ADR segments. Taking a look at the pipeline, this is very similar to what we saw in the Great Recession, where properties that were under construction when we started this downturn have now opened, but we're not seeing the same influx of projects enter that construction phase. So we're seeing the number of hotels and rooms under construction actually decline. We have seen considerable growth in those early planning stages, but a couple caveats there. One is that it's usually a 3 to 4 year lag time before we actually see those properties hit the supply growth side of things. The other caveat is, based on an analysis we did pre-pandemic, about a third of those properties will never actually leave the planning stages. They'll just die in those early planning stages. So don't see those numbers and see that growth and think we're suddenly going to see an influx in the next few years. And this is just tracking those in construction rooms, so you can see how similar these construction patterns are to what we saw in the first 24 months of the recession. We're not necessarily expecting the same bottoming out, but it is interesting to see that trend line continue. So now zeroing in on Lee County. It's been a while since I've gotten to speak to people and deliver good news, but the good news is that Lee County has recovered across all KPIs to 2019 levels. Even once you take inflation into account, both ADR and RevPAR are at 99% of 2019 levels. So really just a remarkable recovery story. You know, ADR and RevPAR, these are hitting new highs every day. Occupancy, it's recovered to those pre-pandemic levels. It's not quite recovered to the prior peak. We'll take a look at that in a couple slides. I think it's interesting to look back at the Great Recession and the difference between Lee County and the total US. The difference I want to call out here is the bottom that each of those different areas reached. In the Great Recession, the US hit around 54% occupancy at its lowest point. It hit 14 points lower in the past couple of years during the COVID pandemic. Lee County, on the other hand, very similar bottom point for the Great Recession and for COVID-19. So I think that speaks to the resiliency of the market, that we didn't see the same bottoming out that we saw for the total US. Now, that bottoming out was much more accelerated in a 12-month period instead of around 2 to 3 years that we saw for the recession. But I think it's important to put it in context and see that it's not the same unprecedented language that we're speaking about for the total US that we saw in Lee County, at least by this metric. So this is looking back to those prior peaks of ADR and occupancy that I mentioned. Occupancy actually peaked for the county back in 2018. So we haven't quite built back up to that level, but we are at those pre-pandemic levels. And like I said, ADR continuing to hit record highs every month. Looking at the recovery story by class, it's actually remarkably balanced when you look at economy through upscale properties, even more balanced than what we saw from the total US. You know, occupancy is pretty much across the board recovered for those 4 classes, and ADR as well, although some of those gains are being eaten up a bit by inflation. But then when we take a look at luxury and upper upscale, those ADRs more than keeping up with inflation when compared to 2019 levels. You do see that upper upscale occupancy struggling to recover to the same levels, similar to what we were talking about at the national level, but still above that national level. If you remember, total US, it was around 68% of 2019. Here we're talking about 90% of 2018 levels, or 2019, excuse me. And this is looking at it in absolute terms. You can see again that upper upscale struggling to return. But ADR, I think it's interesting to look at that spread between the economy properties and the luxury properties. When we look back to 2019, it was about a $250 spread between the lowest end hotels and the highest end hotels in the county. Because of that strength in the luxury ADR, that has now grown to $345, I believe. So, or $325, excuse me, to $325. So I think that really shows just what that strength in luxury ADR means for the diversity of the market in terms of ADR performance. We were talking earlier about how that leisure traveler is really what's driving the recovery, and you can really see that story when you take a look at the weekday and weekend data. What we've heard anecdotally is that the leisure traveler isn't just coming for a 2-day weekend, they're staying for a 3-4-day weekend, and that's impacting the shoulder days. And you can see that here where Sunday occupancy has recovered above 2019 levels, you know, clear proof that they're staying an extra couple of days. And same with Thursday, that one's almost recovered. It's the strongest weekday. And then that translates over to the same ADR premiums as well. Taking a look at that transient and group recovery story, ADR for both of the segments is above 2019 levels. Now that means very different things for these two segments. Transient is $50 higher than it was just a couple of years ago. Whenever we're looking at this segmentation data, we're only looking at upper upscale and luxury hotels. Those are the types of hotels that tend to segment their customer in this way, so that's why the rates are a little higher than when we were just looking at the market as a whole. But again, if more of that demand is shifting towards the transient traveler, that means that more of it is shifting towards that high ADR traveler. And you can see that demand shift here, where transient demand has recovered, group demand still trying to build back. But if we compare to 2019 levels, group demand made up about a quarter of all room nights. Right now, that's down to 12%. Zooming out for a moment just to take a look at the supply picture in the county. There's currently 153 hotels comprising about 13,000 rooms. Little less than 3/4 of those rooms are what we would consider limited service, and that's the economy through upscale class. So these aren't properties that have, a full F&B operation or anything like that. They're a bit more scaled back in those types of amenities, just to get a sense of what kind of properties we're talking about here. And when we look at some of the supply that's come in the last couple of years, it's a lot of that limited service supply. It's the majority upper mid-scale. The only one that was full service was the Luminary back in the fall of 2020. We've got another one on the way here in the next month or so, I believe. The Fairfield Bonita Springs should be opening, taking reservations now. And that story is going to continue when we take a look at what's in the pipeline. It's a lot of limited service properties, that upper mid-scale and upscale segment. We do have one full service property, and that's the Margaritaville. That's coming in a couple of years now. That we classify as upper upscale. But other than that, it's really going to be that select service segment, mid-scale, upper mid-scale type properties. So now taking a look at some of the other counties across Florida. These charts are going to show on the left, it's the absolute performance. On the right, that same performance indexed to 2019. The dashed line is going to represent the state as a whole and how that's performing. Lee County is really middle of the pack when it comes to occupancy. There's a lot of counties there. They're just between that 65-68% occupancy range. Lee County is one of them. It is one of 4 counties that we looked at that has recovered to 2019 levels, so really positive there. One that's struggling in terms of occupancy is Miami-Dade. That's a county that relies a bit more on some of that international travel, some of that corporate travel, convention travel. So until those demand sources come back, that's a market that's been a bit slower to recover in terms of occupancy. ADR, here's where we start to see an outlier, which is Monroe County. They're at 140% of 2019 levels, just really out in front there. The rest of the areas are all above 2019 levels, and for the most part, keeping up with inflation. It's really only Broward that isn't quite keeping up with inflation, but the state as a whole, most counties are keeping up with that inflation growth. And that translates over to the RevPAR performance as well. And just taking another look at that RevPAR performance, this is looking at how occupancy and ADR are feeding into that RevPAR. So you can see, again, Monroe County out in front there. But then we've got a cluster of Lee County, Pinellas, Broward, and Sarasota all grouped together there in that 68 to 70% occupancy range. So now looking into our forecast. So for the total US, we are projecting continued growth for the next couple of years. We are projecting that it's going to slow down from what we saw in 2021. I don't think anyone was expecting the growth that we saw this year. We're certainly not expecting that level of growth to continue. We are projecting RevPAR recovery by around mid-2023, but again, the caveat there is inflation. Once we take inflation into account, it's going to be a couple more years before we return to those real 2019 dollars. A little bit of a different story here for Lee County, what we're projecting for the county. We are expecting continued growth through 2022, but a little bit of a softening in 2023. There are a few factors there. One is the new supply. The county really hasn't seen a ton of supply growth, and with the properties we've seen in the last couple of years, and then the ones that are currently in the pipeline, even as demand continues to grow, you've got more hotels there to accommodate it, which is why we're expecting a little bit of that softening. When it comes to rate, a lot of those properties we already talked about coming in are upper mid-scale, upscale. those are on the lower ADR spectrum. So as you add more of those properties, it's just naturally going to shift the ADR contribution of the market. And then the last piece is a lot of these markets that we've seen do really well through 2021 were driven by that domestic leisure traveler. And we've seen a lot of domestic substitution where a traveler may go on a cruise ordinarily or may want to travel internationally and either couldn't do that or didn't feel comfortable doing that. And so they were driven to some of these leisure destinations. We are expecting that that demand is going to back off a little bit in 2023 as they start to feel comfortable with some of those other options opening back up. And just to put it in historical perspective, even though we're expecting that softening, it's still above 2019 levels, and for ADR and RevPAR, it's still the highest on record. I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Great job, Hannah. Any questions for Hannah?
So,
Brian?
so looking at our year-to-date performance for Smith Travel, knowing that we benchmark ourselves against ourselves, we look great. Everything's doing awesome. We're setting new records. Benchmarking ourselves against the other counties that are out there, when I look at our ADR growth, we're at a single-digit ADR growth versus every other county's in the double digits. Do you feel, in your opinion, that we're leaving money on the table from an ADR standpoint in the market?
I've been telling you that all year long, haven't I?
We're at an 8.3%. The next growth is 11.6, and then goes all the way up through the 20s and 30s when you look at it from a Smith Travel standpoint. And when you look at the occupancies, we're all growing the occupancies at the same point, but every other county in Florida that we compare ourselves against
Well,
has outgrown us in
I
rate.
think you'll see our occupancy is tending to grow a little bit more, but that's because you're more favorable in rate. I think I've been saying this, for a while. Let Hannah give her perspective, but at the end of the day, that's a bit of a catch-22, as you know. If it goes up too fast, then, those repeat consumers are like, I'm starting to feel priced out of the market. We may end up in a more favorable position in the long run because we've moderated it a bit compared to some of the competition. I think it's just going to depend. But my assessment this year, in 2021, there was money left on the table for sure.
Brian, my question would be, when we look at that, remember our seasonal nature. So on those off-season times, then people are bringing their rates down and competing at lower ADRs than they really should be to get those rooms in. And now we're going to, we've got more growth. I think that we are almost becoming less seasonal. I think we're starting to see that trend where our season is expanded and expanded. And I think that gives the opportunity for a steadier ADR growth than the seasonal that we've always competed against each other on getting heads and beds.
Yeah, all of these counties are all have seasonal counties, and they're all just outgrowing us in rate through the course of 2021 by significant margins.
But do they have the same number of beds they're competing against? So, a lot of those counties, maybe Collier would probably be comparable, but some of the other counties might not have.
It's relative.
And I think, in fairness, looking at it on that chart doesn't show all those differences. There are 2 Ritz-Carltons in Naples, right? A JW Marriott. We don't have that. So I think some of those things are context. It has to do with the type of product too.
But if you're looking at it, when you look at the type of product, we're not talking about the actual ADR. We're talking about the percentage growth off that ADR. So for the Ritz to go from a 300 to a 320 isn't as great of an ADR growth than a hotel to go from $75 to $125. That's a huge growth. So when you look at it that's why we only look at percentages. I don't even look at the ADRs. What's our percentage growth versus what everybody else's percent? That's putting everybody on the same playing field. And so when you take all of that into consideration, if the county was my hotel, I would be answering a lot of questions today as to why I was the lowest ADR growth of all of the competitors that I'm competing against.
Yeah, in the aspect that I don't know that money's being left on the table. I think you got an issue of, you have consumers saying, you can't charge those prices because these hotels haven't renovated. So I think you have a lot of hotels that have not updated. So,
Well, if that was.
so if you're the owner of Lee County, you're saying to yourself, huh, do I need to capitalize my renovations? I mean, you just renovated yours.
Yeah, I think though, if that were the case, you'd see a dip in the occupancy, because we've already increased the rates and the occupancy would come down, but we're at a 38% growth occupancy compared to everybody else. It's right in the same ballpark. So,
I think the one difference I would say, Hannah, when you were showing the growth of the ADR, luxury was the one that was just outplaying everyone else. So back to that product mix, a little bit, that plays into that conversation, right? I mean, you know, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say I didn't look, in depth at every single county. I did take a look at Monroe because I was particularly interested in the 40% growth over 2019 levels. Some of it is supply, the lack of supply growth in that county. They haven't seen a property open there in the past couple of years. And then part of it is that what product is actually there. They're about 25% luxury and 20% upper upscale. So when we look at those ADR trends nationwide, where those are the hotels that have really driven rate, that's why we are seeing some of those strengths. Now, again, I just took a look at Monroe. I didn't take a look at every county to see, what exactly is driving that strength in rate.
But Brian, just to that point, obviously this is 2021 data, but we just got, Star just did a blog post about early 22 data, and, we're right in the mix. I mean, occupancy above the top 25 markets, and in terms of ADR, right in the mix of, of where we would be competing with those markets. So I mean, obviously it's season and we know that, but I think in context, we're having key lime pie at our staff meeting tomorrow because we beat Monroe for occupancy last week. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a big deal. So good to beat the competition, right? It's just, that's a tough competitor, Monroe. I mean, you look, all the numbers, all the time. I mean, I can't afford to go anymore. It's too expensive. But, it is, we know where the competition is. It's.
Any other questions, Fran? Yeah, Robert.
I mean, another alarming thing on there, and you get both sides of this argument, and I think Bill brings up a great one. Obviously, Brian does too. If you look at the inflation, that becomes a little scary. We think we're going up on rate, but might not be going up faster than inflation in some cases here. And I appreciate you for kind of bringing that in a visual that we can see. I think the other thing is just some of the common sense things that occur. Monroe County has a year-round occupancy that's the envy of probably every, place in the United States. A massive summer travel season that we typically don't have as strong of, because all these Florida sporting folks are going to Monroe County down to the Keys during that time. Then they get the same winter traveler that we get during our peak season. And they don't have any more land, so they don't build out X amount of these hotels. So that's a tough comparison. And then I see the other side of it where we also need to be true to who we are. I see, and I don't have a flag hotel, and somebody may comment in on this that does. This rate based on occupancy that you have on a smart hotel system. I mean, I'm still in like a family business where we sit around and go, is that room worth, let's make it more for next season, right? So one of the things that I think's happened is these occupancies have climbed, as these managers have said, hey, let it fly. If somebody's willing to pay that much to be in one of these hotel rooms, let them do it. But I do worry that down the road, that can hurt. If the hotel property's just flat not worth that kind of price point, then long-term, are you really doing yourself a favor? Short-term, you're making a ton of money because they're going to take it. And we've seen that with some of the properties around. So, it's a kind of a little bit of a conundrum, I guess, that we find ourselves in. The nicer hotels that were more updated most recently probably are more capable of getting that peak rate, hence continuing to do renovations at a nice property like yours.
I think there's just an expectation right now from anybody shopping for a hotel room anywhere. they're going to be paying more than what they normally have ever paid. I'm going to see my daughter in Tallahassee for a weekend, and I just looked, and I can get the Holiday Inn for $12.90 a night in Tallahassee. And a few years ago, I'd look at that and I'd say, oh my God, I'd never stay there in my life. Today, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, well, you know, I know I'm not going to pay that, but this hotel over here is only $600 a night now. Okay, well, now that's a bargain. Now I'm willing to stay. But I know I'm not going back to the days of when I used to pay $175 a night, because those days are gone.
Parents'
Right?
weekend.
So I think that the expectation, because of inflation, we're paying more for everything. So everybody's already starting to be conditioned that it's going to cost you more when you come. And I don't know if all hoteliers, maybe they have. I'm in a branded property, so it's different for me. But I don't know if all hoteliers have picked up on that. Everybody is starting to be conditioned that it's going to cost more. And we're still charging those, you know, all right, well, we've charged this for all these years, so we're going to stay at this rate. There may be opportunity, and this may suggest that. That's all it's worth. That's all it's saying. You know, when you look at it in Charlotte County, so Charlotte doesn't have a lot of big luxury branded properties, grew 11.6%. We grew 8.3%. So, you know, is there opportunity? And that's the only reason why I raise it. I always look at this and just say, we did great, and there's no doubt about it, and congratulations to everybody for doing great. But is there that opportunity to do? Did we leave a little on the table without hurting our brand? And that's all the question is designed to spur thinking of.
I think too, when you have a repeat customer versus a brand new customer, it's a big difference. The repeat customer who was used to paying a certain thing sees the rate increase, and it's kind of a little bit sticker shock. Whereas the other traveler who has never been here before or stayed at your property, they'll come in and say, that's the rate, okay. So that's when you got to watch what happens with TripAdvisor and the other fun things that happen.
Well, Brian, you're going to Tallahassee at the wrong time of year. It's session right now, so everybody's up there this week. I saw the socks. I don't want to say anything about the socks.
There's condo pie get in Tallahassee, so always an opportunity.
$1,290 was the actual rate.
Bunk up with one of our legislators. I'm sure they're looking for.
Nights in, I think, was $790.
Yeah. Great. Anything else for Hannah? Okay. Well, thank you, Hannah, for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Captiva Beach erosion update with Councilwoman Jennifer Nelson and Daniel.
You report to Star.
I don't know, mine keeps going down too. I'm already on the ground.
All right. Thank you again for having us today. My name is Jennifer Nelson. In addition to being a city councilwoman for the city of Cape Coral, I'm also the executive director for the Captiva Erosion Prevention District. I've been in this role about 13, maybe 14 months. I've learned an awful lot about biomodular sand granules, and I've learned an awful lot about dredgers and pumping. But I think the most important thing that I've learned is this type of work requires a lot of collaboration. And so I'm grateful for this group and many of the folks around the table who worked with us and collaborated with us during this project, because it really did take an island. So very quickly, I want to acknowledge the city of Sanibel first and foremost. They're not on this list. I hate making these things because I always forget someone. But they allowed us to use Turner Beach, the parking lot at Turner Beach, to be able to mobilize our equipment when we first started the project. Without their partnership, there's no way we would have been able to pull this off. So thank you, Mayor Smith. I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge you all. Again, the grant money that we receive from you is very important to this project, and especially to our tourists that come to the beach. So we appreciate you as well. We have some pretty great commissioners. We lost one, Commissioner Kaiser, and you'll see later in the presentation his photograph. But we do want to thank our commissioners. We have two new that were appointed this week. Was it this week? Yeah, this week. Linda Laird, who's on the Captiva Community Panel, and Bob Walter, who is now a consultant for South Seas. So we're grateful to have those two new commissioners with us. Of course, we can't do any work without our partners at SCCF. Kelly Sloan was amazing. I spent hours with her one night from about 9 o'clock until 4 in the morning, and got to witness turtle nest removal. It's very scientific. You use your hands, and you carefully take the eggs out and place them in large paint buckets that are empty with towels in them, and it was fascinating to watch. So I was grateful for that experience. There's nothing more incredible than seeing a large turtle lay her eggs and then go back in the moonlight to the water. It's just an incredible experience. We have some pretty amazing engineers that we work with through Aptum. They're listed here. Nicole Sharp, again, she's just stellar to work with. She taught me a lot very quickly about engineering. And then, of course, our other engineers, that group also came throughout the summer and the fall to assist us, be on site, and help us ride the beach. So I just wanted to say thank you. We also took 2 boat rides. We were able to take some local officials out as well as our congressmen. We were very grateful for their support and interest in wanting to go out offshore 9 miles to see our dredger. And it was a great experience. Mayor Smith joined us for one of the both boat rides, actually. And it was just an incredible experience to be able to go out and look at this massive barge that is pumping sand that goes on our beach. So this was our project location. We had to basically grow the 4.85 miles of beach on Captiva. Again, it was a fascinating, very fascinating project to work on, definitely different than anything I've ever done in my career. So I was very grateful for this opportunity. But we basically went from Turner Beach all the way to the end of South Seas, and we were able to do that quite successfully, which you're going to hear about. So I think it's really important to learn the history as to how this came about and why we do this. You know, this is just all fascinating to me in my last year of employment. But basically, we've had over 50 years of nourishment projects, and I thought it was important to show some old photographs so you all could see kind of the difference of what we used to look like 50, 60 years ago versus what we look like now. We used to have groins. We had limited fill placements, and what that means is when we have a storm or some type of weather, oftentimes, like perfect example, Tam sent me an email the morning after Elsa came. That was the first storm we had, and what a difference going one day out on the beach and then coming after a storm hit. Our beach shrunk. We had many escarpments, which are these cutouts in the sand in the dunes, and Tam was the first person to reach out to say, can you send us pictures, and is there anything we can do here at the county as well as natural resources to help you? And so that was pretty incredible. Mercifully, we were going to start our renourishment project about 6 weeks after that storm. So at the time, we didn't need assistance, but it was great to know that we could ask. We had our very first island-wide renourishment in 1988, and we renourished again these dates. 2013 was the last nourishment project, and I think it's important to say that 2013 was the first year that we had the Army Corps pull out of our project. They used to be a partial funder, and the reason they did that was because evidently we flew under the radar, and we were supposed to have public access points on Captiva every 0.25 miles, and we didn't. So the Army Corps pulled out. So you're going to hear a lot about how we pay for it, how we've paid for it, how we will pay for it when Dan gets up here and does his portion. And then again, you know, we had supplemental fill project in 2008 at both of these locations due to a storm. So this is interesting to see too, because I learned a lot, as I mentioned jokingly earlier, about biogranule biogranule modular sand, anyway. But it's interesting to see because you can see the amount of sand that we've put on this beach over the years. And again, you know, you have to think, so I believe Charlie hit in 2005, is that right?
2004.
2004. So I thought it was very interesting to see 2006. I was trying to remember that because I was pregnant and I was in California, and I remember calling the vice president of operations at Goodwill saying, how are you guys doing? So anyway, but I thought it was very interesting to see in 2006 how much sand that we had, which was the most amount, and I just found that fascinating. And then you can see in 2008 and 2013, and we'll talk about how much we dropped this project. Oops. What? Oh, sorry. So as you can see, these are very great photos. I mean, this is really, we're kind of at the same spot, if you can believe that, from this picture from 1988, which was a pre-construction photograph. And now look, basically standing at the same spot after the project, you can see how much wider the beach is and how much sand and how much opportunity we have for visitors to come and park and be happy on our beach. Here's some more before and after photos. This is just north of Twin Waters, is that right? So just north of Twin Waters, you can see here from the 1988 photo. And then here we are in almost the same spot. And again, look at the difference. And I'd like to point out, you see those new vegetations? Those are dune plantings. And that's fascinating to watch too. There's a machine and they dig a hole, and then the dune planting goes in, and it has its own little capsule of water to give it water until it rains. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. So we think it's important to kind of point out some of the project elements. As again, I mentioned, we looked at putting the sand on all 4.85 miles from these markers, from Turner Beach all the way to the end of where South Seas is. This was going to obviously address background erosion and some hotspot areas. I talked about that escarpment, the cutouts in the dunes. You'll see some photographs of those after some of our storms later in the presentation. And also to give us a higher and a wider beach so that we can account for sea level rise. As you all know, we have one road onto the islands and one road off. So it's very important for CEPD to work with our partners and collaborate to not only focus on the beach side and that road side, but also now the bay side. So that's something that CEPD is going to focus on this year and strategically plan so that we can be effective with our collaborators. So we had Hurricane Eta, and believe it or not, that really affected our island. Even though the eye passed 100 miles offshore of Captiva, we had a lot of shoreline loss as well as dune loss. And so, as you can see, because it was Cat 4, the 150-mile-per-hour winds definitely had an effect on us, as well as how it moved. If you recall, it kind of went in at the very last minute and then made those two landfalls in Central Florida Keys and then Cedar Key. And again, you know, the eye was past 100 miles offshore. So it's pretty incredible that something that would be 100 miles offshore and eye would have caused so much damage to our beach. So these are photographs after. Now this was prior to Daniel and my being here. No, you were there. No, you weren't there yet. Yeah, so this was prior to us, but these are some photographs. You can see we lost our fencing, our pole and rope fencing that protected our dune. You can see the dune damage. This is the escarpment that, you know, was literally cut out. And look at how short the beach became after that storm. It's just fascinating. More photographs after. People love to come out and shell. I'm sure you know, after storms. They say they get the best shells. That's what I hear from our locals as well as our visitors. More photos. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the bidding approach because we're unique. We are unique in our project because we actually have permits that allow for year-round construction. And so with that, we were able to offer an option A and an option B. The key thing to note here is that we are able to do our project during turtle nesting season. And that is why our communication and collaboration with our partners on the island is so crucial, because without them, we wouldn't be able to secure such a great cost. Most marine contractors aren't working in the summer months. They're working because of turtle nesting season, they can't work. So the fact that we have a year-round permit was very beneficial to us and our residents, because we were able to secure a much lower bid, which saved us about $2.5 million. So it was definitely worth it to have that. And again, many people ask, well, did you lose any turtles? It's hard to say. We didn't get a report that we lost. Our numbers look to be a little less than they were last year, but the last storm that we had over the 4th of July, unfortunately, we lost several nests because of the storm. So sea turtles don't come without a challenge, kind of like burrowing owls in Cape Coral. You have to move them. And the biggest, I guess, first snafu that we discovered was that our permit holder, SCCF, secured a permit, however, only secured it for the north end of the island. So the plan was at that time that our partners were going to move the turtle nest from the north end to the south end. But obviously that wasn't going to work, because we were going to need to do the entire beach. So that was a huge first challenge, which required lots and lots of meetings with FWC, DEP, SCCF, us, our contractors, and we had very much extensive coordination and conversations, I want to say weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, for about 6 weeks. So it was definitely a little scary, because we thought, how are we going to renourish this whole island when we can't move the nests? We're going to have to wait and do it in season, which we didn't want to do. We had a very active storm season. As I mentioned, the first one was Elsa that we had, and then we had Fred, we had Grace, and we had Ida. Every time we have a storm, anything that we're moving, that the engineers and the contractors are moving in the water has to stop. It has to wait. So that did put us back a few weeks, these storms, but we still ended up finishing the project on the timeline, right on the timeline. We didn't think that was going to happen. We were a little worried for a while that we would be into December before we'd be done, but didn't work. It worked out to our favor, so we were grateful. So these are the dates that we started. We did have to wait to get all of the permitting and everything good to go with Florida Fish and Wildlife and also the DEP. We did have to wait until we got the permit settled, so we started September 1st, and all of the equipment was moved off island. I think the last piece was November 9th, and believe me, we wanted to get that equipment out because we finished staging in the parking lot that CEPD manages, which is a revenue generator for us, and so we had our parking lot closed for a little over a month. And the same thing happened with City of Sanibel, as they manage the Turner Beach parking lot. So we were trying to be mindful of getting the equipment in and getting out as quickly as possible. Our contractor that we used was Great Lakes Dredge and Dock. When Daniel and I first started last year, we attended the same conference we were actually in St. Augustine last week for, which is the National Beach Preservation Conference. And we heard about Great Lakes last year, a month, I think, into our new jobs. And the thing that I remember saying to Daniel was, wait, did you hear what he said? They're going to do walk-aheads with residents, and they're going to do walk-aheads with businesses. That's what we need. And so we remembered that, and so when it came time to bid, I was like hoping and praying that they would be the bid our commissioners selected, and they were. And that was the first thing we got to meet about and communicate and talk through. And that was just a wonderful asset to have when you're working with a dredging contractor, to be able to work with the project manager on the beach and do walk-aheads, so that as residents and visitors had questions and business owners had questions, we had a clear communication plan, and if there were any issues, we were going to address them and move forward. As you can see, this time we placed a little over 800,000 cubic yards of sand, which our commissioners were very happy about. Initially, prior to ETA, I think we were set to do about 775,000 cubic yards, but after that storm, we had to do a reassessment and look at putting some more sand. So the other things we did our dune plantings, which I mentioned earlier. We rebuilt our dunes because, as you know, dunes protect the shoreline. And so it was very important that we made sure that we were going to redo our dunes and do some dune planting. Again, we did the coordinated and walk-aheads with property owners and businesses. You can see here in this top photograph, Tony Lappy and his team from Tween Waters and our engineers and our project managers all talking about, I think you fell during Labor Day, was it? We were on his section of the beach right before Labor Day. So we were trying to get out of that section so that he could have a successful Labor Day weekend. And, we certainly wanted to be mindful of our business partners on the beach. So we did everything we could. We looked at potential places to put dunes there. I don't think we did one, but we did do some dune planting, so that was good. And then overall, throughout the whole island, 4.85 miles, we planted 350,000 sea oats, which you can see we're getting some signs made because, believe it or not, people don't pay attention and they step on them, and it makes our residents very angry. So we're working on getting some signage and getting our posts and rope back up so it protects all the new plantings. So we did also have other challenges. About midway through the project, we were notified that we had an eagle. We had a newly established bald eagle nest that was made in 2020, and that we had to be mindful of the nesting season, which starts October 1st. So we had to hire a monitoring company to be able to make sure that the eagles did not get agitated, because like burrowing owls, they get agitated. And you have to make sure that you have a 660-foot buffer of any place that you're working where the eagle nest is. So that was definitely a little bit of a challenge. We had to navigate and definitely measure and make sure, and we had to hire somebody to monitor to make sure we were doing what we said we were going to do and what was required to do by law. And this was the best. See this person out here? Okay. So I get a call from Lieutenant Sawicki, who's on island. Hey, Jen, it's Mike. So we got a little issue. And I'm like, what's the issue? And this individual refused to get off the beach. Refused. And I said to Mike, well, what are we going to do? He's like, well, I can give him a ticket. I could arrest him. I said, no, don't do that. So we met. We talked with the project manager. We met with the individual. We said, listen, we're going to have bulldozers coming around you. This is really not a safe area. Didn't care, could care less, wasn't moving no matter what. So we just, said a little prayer and explained to him that if something happened to him, we were not going to be liable because we have these bulldozers coming by back and forth 57 times in, the 3 hours this individual was on the beach. So it was definitely a challenge. Most people were pretty good. Most people, when our supervisors and our safety people would say, hey, you're in a construction zone, would you mind moving this way? We really didn't have any issues. We didn't have anybody fighting with us, nothing like that, except this person. So that was definitely a challenge. So as you can see, this is the construction. These are the pipelines. This is where the sand comes in and then pumps on the beach. You can see it there, and it's just fascinating. So you can see, how much work goes into it and why it would be potentially dangerous if you were setting up an umbrella and a chair next to these bulldozers that are smoothing out sand on the beach. This is more of the project. You can see working. You can see how it's going to be pushing. You see all that sand pile is going to be flattened, and that's going to make a wider part of our beach. It's pretty neat. You ready? Okay. So this is Daniel Munt. He's our newly promoted Director of Operations. He's amazing to work with. I've learned a lot from him. He's a GIS master, and he actually came from Lee County, so.
Good morning, everybody. On your screen here, you'll see a sand walkover, a picture of the sand walkover that we established every 200 feet for the public to be able to access the seaward side of the pipeline. This is very important, and as you can see in the pictures, it didn't deter people from entering that area to enjoy the beach. And the picture on the right that you see is actually the construction utilizing the bulldozers. So it's important that we kept the public out of that area. And I'm going to take a brief minute before I get into this slide, and just, as me and Jennifer came on board at the beginning of last year, one of the things that we quickly learned was that the island of Captiva has a very active and involved community, and they strive to learn and know everything about the happenings going on, and at the forefront of their mind is the beach. It's the reason why they bought property on that island. It's always at the front of their mind. So me and Jennifer, we knew to be successful and to have a successful project and to maintain community support, we needed to step up our communication game and increase transparency and communication to the island. One of the ways that we accomplish this and continue to try to innovate and improve is through an increased social media footprint. We've brought on our social media manager who's doing social media right now. She's doing a fantastic job. We improved our web design, and we've also implemented the use of geographic information systems. Utilizing GIS systems, we implemented a searchable and interactive map to show where the construction was going to progress on the beach. It allowed a day-by-day breakdown of where we anticipated the construction to happen. As you've seen from the previous photos, this is pretty invasive, so those that own businesses and those that rent out their houses, vacation rentals, they want to be able to plan ahead for when they should notify their guests of what's going to occur. Additionally, a map was generated for the funding mechanism because there's a local assessments to be made, so it's important to be transparent and clear to the community of what's going to be expected of them to be paid. On the screen here, you'll see an example of the map that was published to the CEPD website. Prior to, we had a general timeline that's in the middle of the screen, but you can see how the map is much more detailed, and you can see by property and location where the construction is going to occur. Having 3 different pipelines, sublines landed, I should say they're not landed concurrently. We moved the pipeline along the beach, but the property owner should know specifically where that pipeline is going to be because it's there for a certain duration of time. This is a very popular product that we put on our website. As you can see, it had almost 8,000 hits on it for an island that has just over 1,100 properties. Now we get to talk a little bit about the fun part. Everybody loves to talk about the funding. Total project cost for this construction was around $19.5 million. Of that, just over 21% of that's paid by FDEP, and nearly 30% of it's paid by Lee County, and that includes the $323,526 that was funded by the TDC, so we want to take a minute to say thank you, and we really appreciate your support. And then the remaining, almost 50% of it is funded through local assessment. Captiva is a little unique in the way that we break down the local assessment. Many local governments that do this beach nourishment, they hand out a same bill to everyone. We actually research and look into, we hire an economist to break down what benefits are applied to what properties, and each of the properties they pay based off of the benefit they receive, and we break these down by recreational benefits as well as storm damage reduction benefits. We hire an economist to do a study to determine a willingness to pay study, and then we group the properties into 3 different categories. We group them into residential properties, residential with homestead exemption to designate the permanent residents of the island, as well as the commercial properties. I will take a second to brief the reason for the residential with homestead exemption is that the study by the economist actually revealed that the permanent residents utilized the beach a little over 42% less than the temporary residents do. So we give them a break on their assessment. Again, the concept is about 50% of the project's funded through local assessment. All the properties on the island, they benefit in some way, shape, or form from the beach nourishment. So to fairly and equitably distribute the assessment, the property owners pay proportionally based on the benefits that they receive. To visualize these storm protection zones that were created by the engineer, I've included a map that shows that there are 6 of them. And they are based upon similar characteristics such as erosion rate, property distance from the actual beach, and other items. Break down the study that was conducted by the engineer was a 22-year simulation if the project was constructed versus if the project was not constructed, and then the difference was calculated and distributed to each of the zones. They took into account armament, development, backfill, and land loss. So it's not just the houses on here. And then the recreational side, I've already kind of gone over, but it's a willingness to pay study. Here's an example of the apportionment map that I created. It utilizes the property appraiser data incorporated with our own calculated millage rate from our tentative apportionment. Property owners are able to search by their strap number, their address, their name, and it zooms them to their property, and they can click on it and scroll down and see how much they are having to pay for this project. And it's broken down by the recreational assessment and the storm protection assessment, and then it gives a total at the bottom. And here real briefly is a breakdown of the cost share of each of the different categories. This would equate out to that 50% they had to pay. And closing remarks is that regularly scheduled island-wide maintenance has led to the success of Captiva's beach management program. We learned that flexibility in your bidding approach equals big cost savings. The community really loved the proactive walk-aheads, and it really helped us shape the beach to the desires of the community. And that public outreach and social media are key to reaching everybody and to ensuring that everybody's concerns are addressed. And lastly, I just want to do a quick memoriam of Commissioner Harry Kaiser. He served as a commissioner on our board since 2008. He was very dedicated to conservation and preservation of Captiva and its beaches. He was a huge dune advocate. If you were to go up and down the beach, you would probably be able to pick out his house just based off of the extensiveness of his dune planting systems without even knowing him. He was very instrumental in multiple nourishments. We have I'm not sure.
Well, before we show, we have just a little tiny video to show you a little bit of the process. I wanted to take a moment to let you know that we are going to be having a beach celebration. It looks like the date has been finalized for March the 7th. It'll be after our public CEPD meeting. And you all around the table will all receive invitations to attend. It will be on the beach at about 5. Is it 4, 5? 4, yeah, it's either. Yeah, it's 4 to 6. So you all will be hopefully receiving an invitation on Monday, and we really hope you can come and celebrate with us. Can we show the video?
And I'm not sure how to make this thing play. Okay. And there's no sound on the video, so if there's any questions, we can answer them while it's playing if you'd like.
Are you starting now planning for the next 7 years yet?
Yes. One of the things that I've routinely said is that the next 7 years before the nourishment should be the hardest years that we work. And as we get into the next nourishment, we've already practiced the entire time, so it should just be setting everything into motion that we've already planned for.
And I think one of the biggest challenges for Dan and I think you would agree when we both started, is there wasn't a lot of comprehensive historical data. So we spent a lot of time looking for things so that we could have some historical information. So one of the things we made sure we did this time is we have a very comprehensive file so that, should Dan and I get hit by a bus or are no longer there, when the next renourishment project happens, someone can step in and see sort of how it worked the last time. We have very comprehensive timelines. We have our cash flow fund timeline. We have all those things in place so that the next leadership, if we're not there, can come in and go, oh, okay, we need to do this, 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 and this. The other thing that I think I learned probably quickly was that we do these economists study once every 8 years, and we really need to be doing them either every year or every other year. And the reason is because when you have historic events like the red tide issue we had on the islands in 2018, the water quality, the big water quality issue we had in 2018, that affects occupancy rates, which affects our recreational benefits. So I think it's more important to do those types of studies annually or biannually so that we have a clear pattern and we have a clear sort of starting point, and we can see, we can project things moving forward. So yes, Tony, I think that's absolutely crucial what you said is we got to start planning. And now as we take on sea level rise initiatives for the Bay side, that will have to be planned as well. So we're working on finding a company to help us with some strategic planning so that we can get a funding plan together, most importantly.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of information, so a lot of good information there. Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay, that was, this one. Go ahead. Tamara, go ahead with the next item.
In lieu of time, I'm going to just present the budget report. I know it was a little longer than we thought it was going to be, so I just want to very quickly. Before you have three different budget reports: the operating budget for the VCB, operating budget for sports development, and the beach and shoreline program. Pretty much on track in every area. I don't think there's any big issues to share, but just wanted to see if anybody had any questions. And if not, we need a motion for you to accept the budgets.
Make the motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I think the second over.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Oh, sorry. Any questions, discussions? Any objections? No objection, motion carries. Next item.
And the next item for you is the amendment to your bylaws. This codifies the action that the board took last month to add 4 non-voting ex officio members to allow all the municipalities to have a seat at the table here at the TDC.
Non-voting members, right?
Non-voting, correct.
And FRLA, are they having, is that?
Brian has been sitting in that seat. We're codifying that. It's been happening. So that codifies that action that's been going on. It just didn't happen to be in the bylaws, but we have been doing that. Brian in a non-voting seat.
Thank you for sending those out early so we could really take a look. I had my city attorney take a look at it, and everything looks really good. So great job. I think that's going to be a great addition of voices at the table. So, by way of a motion,
Sure.
I would move.
Do we have a motion?
I'll second.
We have a second by Tony. Any discussions? Any objections? Oh, Colleen, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So who sits in the seat? Like, is it chosen by their city council?
The city council would choose the person who sits in that seat. And then it has to be officially appointed by the commission, just like every seat at the TDC.
So Colleen, like, even if I wasn't at the table, I've been the liaison. So we've always been in the room, even though we haven't been at the table. This just kind of gives people the opportunity to be at the table. So the council will choose their liaison for that and have them seated. And then the board would hopefully support those decisions of the council.
Right, of course.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objection, motion carries. Thank you.
And if I could just add on that, I just really appreciate Commissioner Hammond actually brought forward for all of the municipalities to be able to have a seat. Originally, I know it was just looking at one municipality, so I think that was a great compromise that everybody gets a seat at the table.
Right. And we have any other council information at this time? Or not?
You know, I always give you some evening reads, so there's a few things in there that are of interest potentially to you, so enjoy the extra credit reading.
We'll come back to TDC member items. Tony, would you like to start off today? Do you have anything for us?
Special, just big thanks to Tamara for coming out to Captiva yesterday we did a program, and we gave a little show about hospitality, how it affects us on the island, and basically the whole scope of what the TDC does to educate this leadership. So, very nice. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you for including me.
And Tony, I don't think I've seen you since a few months ago. Last time I saw you, my high school, middle school class reunion from Canterbury was at your facility, your hotel a few months ago. So thank you for that. Everybody enjoyed it, came down and stayed there. So we've got some Ole County kids back in the neighborhood. So thanks again. They really enjoyed being out there. Robert?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mayor Smith?
Just real briefly, I just got back from Tallahassee. I went on Sunday, so some items of interest here is a couple of things. Vacation rentals. I had hit the halls with some people on Monday. We anticipated that it was going to be heard in Ways and Means on Wednesday. Fortunately, the count on the votes was no, so it didn't even make its way to the meeting. So don't know if it will come up again, but we knew in that committee that it was stalled again. So that'll come back next year, and everyone's probably familiar with that bill. The regulations on smoking in the parks is making movement. That bill has been around for several years, never getting any traction, and what that is limiting smoking in public parks or in public beaches. The exemption was made again for cigars. But that looks like it is moving forward with the cigar exemption. I don't know if it includes filters or not. And then certainly when I got up there, I found out on Saturday there's a bill that was going through appropriations, and it was SPB 2508. And basically, as all of you know, water quality is such an important aspect of everything that we have here in our economy and our environment, and our economy and our environment. That was going through appropriations. Once we were keyed into it, I did speak at the Senate committee yesterday with some concerns on the language. I know that there are amendments that are probably going to be thrown in. We just want to make sure that the good work that was done for LOSM, which is protecting Southwest Florida, is able to move forward. We're still kind of analyzing the bill, but it was just interesting. The governor just came out with a statement on that while we were in the meeting, that he is in opposition of this bill. So it's going to get interesting, folks. So we'll just see what's happening, but those are important things for us in our area to keep our fingers on the pulse on.
I know Commissioner Wayne was up there too. He'll be back Tuesday to give us a report. But did you ever find out where it was coming from? Because I know it started in appropriations, but who actually sponsored and brought the bill forward? I mean, do we know yet?
It was, I believe it's Senate leadership.
Senate leadership, not one individual senator, or just came up through appropriations?
It came up through appropriations, so really there wasn't one name. Senator Albritton is on, he spoke with quite a bit of clarity. He's the one that we spoke to a little bit in regards to that. So yeah, he is basically the leader of that one at that Senate committee.
Great, thank you.
I think there are a lot of other factors. As any bill that comes through, there's a lot of authors behind it. But in Sanibel, we just decided we needed to speak up and just say we do have some concerns, and looking to work with the Senate for language that's going to work for Southwest Florida.
Great. Well, thank you for being up there.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bill, anything?
No, thank you.
Good. Colleen?
Just a quick thank you to Tam. She came and spoke at our luncheon and helped the business community understand about the new branding, right? Because a lot of the hospitality people got to see the presentation as part of the annual plan. But you did a great job, and it really helped showcase the work that's happening, right? Not just the work, the great seasons we've had, the great year we've had, but also understanding the who, why, what, and where behind the new branding. And I think is the business community that's not necessarily in the hospitality industry doesn't always get to hear all the things behind it. So it was very well received and some great questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Bonk?
Just a couple personnel things for the city of Fort Myers. We've hired a new assistant city manager. His name is John Legge. He'll officially start on March 7th. He comes from Delray Beach as their CFO. And then we also are in the process of hiring, splitting out public works from public works and utilities. And so we're hiring a public works director and really focusing more on the parks and rec opportunities within the city.
Great. Thank you. Brian?
From the FRLA, we have a couple of webinars that are going to be coming up. On February 17th, we have Cheney Brothers that are going to be speaking on some of the distribution challenges that everybody face. So that's a good one to get on and hear about the current challenges we have and what we could potentially be facing in the future. On the 22nd, we'll be discussing our Visit Florida partnership benefits that we received. And then on the 24th, we're doing a webinar on the benefits of hiring returning citizens working with the Department of Corrections for employees. So 3 webinars that are going to be coming up this month in February. So if you want more information on that, you can go to the FRLA website for Lee County chapter.
Thank you, and safe travels to the Holiday Inn on Appalachian Parkway this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, Pam?
Thank you.
Nothing at all. You're so quiet. You look nice today. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, well, anybody else have anything? Andrew, do you have anything from the county attorney's office? Oh, good. Okay. I guess we'll adjourn, and thank you, and we'll see you next month.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna get
Good day.